The Morning Tide. Miss Raven had already described Mr. Cazalet to me by inference as a queer, snuffy, bald-pated old man, but this summary synopsis of his exterior features failed to do justice to a remarkable original. There was something supremely odd about him. I thought, at first, that my impression of oddity might be derived from his clothes. He wore a strangely cut dress coat of blue cloth with gold buttons, a buff waistcoat and a frilled shirt, but I soon came to the conclusion that he would be queer and uncommon in any garments. About Mr. Cazalet there was an atmosphere, and it was decidedly one of mystery. First and last he looked uncanny. Mr. Raven introduced us with a sort of old-world formality. I soon discovered, as regards him, that he was so far unaware that a vast gulf lay between the manners and customs of society as they are nowadays, and as they were when he left England for India in the 70s. He was essentially mid-Victorian. And in order to keep up to it, I saluted Mr. Cazalet with great respect, and expressed myself as feeling highly honoured by meeting one so famous as my fellow guest. Somewhat to my surprise, Mr. Cazalet's tightly locked lips relaxed into what was plainly a humorous smile, and he favoured me with a knowing look that was almost a wink. "Aye, well," he said, "you're just about as well known in your line, Middlebrook, as I am in mine, and between the pair of us I've no doubt we'll be able to reduce the chaos into order. But we'll not talk shop at this hour of the day. There's more welcome matters at hand." He put his snuff-box and his gaudy handkerchief out of sight, and looked at his host and hostess with another knowing glance, reminding me somehow of a wicked old condor which I had sometimes seen at the Zoological Gardens, eyeing the keeper who approached with its meal. "Mr. Cazalet," remarked Miss Raven, with an informing glance at me, "never on principle touches bite or sup between breakfast and dinner, and he has no great love of breakfast." "I'm a disciple of the justly famed and great man Abernethy," observed Mr. Cazalet. "I'd never have lived to my age, nor kept my energy at what, thank heaven, it is, if I hadn't been. Do you know how old I am, Middlebrook?" "I really don't, Mr. Cazalet," I replied. "Well, I'm 80 years of age," he answered with a grin, "and I'm 100, and on my 100th birthday I'll give a party, and I'll dance with the sprightliest lassie that's there, and if I'm not as lively as she is, I'll be sore out of my calculations." "A truly wonderful young man," exclaimed Mr. Raven. "I veritably believe he feels, and is, younger than myself, and I'm 20 years his junior." So I had now discovered certain facts about Mr. Cazalet. He was an octogenarian. He was uncannily active. He had an almost imp-like desire to live, and to dance when he ought to have been wrapped in blankets and saying his last prayers. And a few minutes later, when we were seated round our host's table, I discovered another fact. Mr. Cazalet was one of those men to whom dinner is the event of the day, and who regard conversation, on their part at any rate, as a wicked disturbance of sacred, and Mr. Raven's cook proved to be an unusually clever and good one. I was astonished at Mr. Cazalet's gastronomic powers, and at his love of mad dishes. Indeed, I never saw a man eat so much, nor with such hearty appreciation of his food, nor in such a concentrated silence. Nevertheless, that he kept his ears wide open to what was being said around him, I soon discovered. I was telling Mr. Raven and his niece of my adventure of the afternoon, and suddenly I observed that Mr. Cazalet, on the other side of the round table at which we sat, had stopped eating, and that, knife and fork still in his queer, claw-like hands, he was peering at me under the shaded lamps, his black, burning eyes full of a strange, absorbed interest. I paused involuntarily.